Hey, welcome to the Empowered and in Control podcast, the podcast that helps people who have been impacted by domestic abuse to heal and regain power and control after an abusive relationship using the Empowered and in Control framework. I'm your host, Oriana, your favorite domestic violence expert, speaker, and owner of To Rise Advocacy and Consulting. Now, you guys know that the premise of the show is that we're using the Empowered and in Control framework to do some empowerment coaching, to do some domestic abuse education, but also to do some interviews with experts and survivors. And so I want to give an opportunity to introduce you to, or have her introduce herself. And this is Ms. Bosia.
Hi, everybody. My name is Bosia. I am a Christian, a faith-based warrior. I am a mother and an advocate for health and wellness. I am also a domestic abuse survivor, and I'm happy to be here.
All right. Thank you so much for being on the show. Okay, so this is completely about your story, and I tell people who want to be on the show, and we talked about this when we met, that anyone who wants to be on the show and talk about their experience, I really want to make sure that they're ready, right? That there's been some form of healing, some form of counseling, therapy, but mostly healing that has occurred, so that it's not a situation where you talk about it and then you're kind of freaked out that it's out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so we talked about that, and you said you ready.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Look.
I'm ready. I have definitely done the work. And one of the main things that I realized in this journey is that although we are not responsible for what happened to us, we are responsible for our healing. And so that's one of the main things that I like to encourage other survivors or people that are healing, not even just survivors, but just people that are healing. It's like you have the ability to take control of your healing in your heart, even after all these bad things have happened.
Gotcha. Okay. So let's talk about some of the bad things.
Okay.
And you just start wherever you're comfortable starting.
Okay. I like to start from the beginning because I think it all builds up to how I ended up in those spaces. So I was abused as a child, sexually and physically, and by men that were close to me in my family. And I didn't know that I was initially being abused. It felt like mistreatment, but it began to show up in different ways. I was having nightmares. I was having night terrors, nosebleeds, and eventually started acting out in my behavior because I didn't have language for what was actually happening to me. And as I got older, I recognized that the abuse started mirroring itself in my romantic relationships. So when I began dating and finding interest in boys and young men, there were a lot of controlling dynamics. It wouldn't show up as abuse initially, sexually or physically. It would start subtly, as in control disguised as concern. And I thought I was being cared for. I thought that the concern was cared for because the men who had abused me were actually responsible for my care, and they had abused me. So when I began to choose romantic partners, I definitely knew that I was seeking a care and concern that I hadn't received previously.
Okay. Let's talk about that. Let's dive a little deeper into that one, because I feel like we don't talk about the care and concern that we are often seeking, and particularly as Black women.
Yeah.
Particularly as Black women.
Yeah.
We've touched on this kind of in conversation that we've had before, but and it's a podcast episode that I definitely plan on doing. I may make it a series, but Black girls and women have not been protected.
Yeah.
ever since we've been brought over here.
Yeah.
We have not been protected.
Yeah.
We were not protected because we weren't allowed to be at one point.
Yes.
But then even when we have been, when Black men have been allowed to or been available to protect us, we still have not been protected.
Yeah.
And that shows up in a lot of the traumas that we experience, but also shows up in the statistics, right? Because even to this day, Black women are killed at 4 times the rate of white women in this country.
Yeah.
And we're not getting the services that we need.
Yeah.
So when we talk about care and concern, one of the things that I feel is kind of overlooked is that when you're a childhood survivor of abuse, and especially of sexual abuse, we learn to keep secrets.
For sure.
Right?
For sure.
And if you can keep that kind of secret,
yeah,
it's nothing.
There's nothing you won't withhold.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's hard for people to understand. But then there's also, like you said, that complexity of, these are the people who are supposed to love and care for you. They were supposed to provide, what your emotional needs were, and yet, and I'm sure that for most people there are good and bad times, right? There's abuse, but there's also, good and happy moments. And so it's very easy as a child to grow up with that in your head, that somebody who loves and cares for you can also hurt you.
Yeah. And I think that was my framework. Probably, I'm 35, probably for like 30 years, that those things could coexist, that I could be loved and cared for and severely mistreated at the same time. And that was a part of love. Love hurts.
Hey, the Empowered and in Control wheel and its guide is a hopeful tool that I developed for people who are impacted by domestic abuse. It's a healing-centered tool that creates a pattern of positive behaviors that people can use to regain power and control after an abusive relationship. Click the link in the description to get your copy for yourself or for someone that you know who is struggling to move forward after the trauma of an abusive relationship. You can be empowered and in control again. Bye.
We hear those things. Love hurts. Love is sacrificial. There are good and bad times. There are ups and downs. You can't judge people based off one isolated moment or different things. And I think in my mind I rationalized that, and I didn't even think about it until you just brought it out, that probably as a child I internalized that yes, this man or this person can do these things to me and still claim love at the end of the day. But it definitely showed up in my relationships. Because as long as there was some level of care being exhibited, I was willing to stay, no matter what it was costing me.
And that's very common. That's not something that sounds foreign at all, because especially, and this goes across the board, it's not specific to Black girls and women, but when you are in an inconsistent household as far as emotional needs and attachment styles, we talk about that, it's not uncommon to be seeking that, right? And so you think about what we're clamoring for. We're clamoring for little bits of attention and sprinkles of good times.
Because that's better than nothing.
Exactly.
At all. I was raised by by present but emotionally unavailable men. So I had no language, no knowledge of how to voice my emotional needs. I didn't even know what they were. So a lot of my what I went seeking for was purely based off feeling, and that's not a good way to make an informed decision,
right?
Based off a temporary feeling, because you end up just chasing those temporary feelings. Whoever can give you that temporary feeling, there's no safety, just a feeling.
Right.
And you become with that. So yeah, you definitely need to make that a series. You definitely need to make that a series, especially for our Black and brown girls. That because, like you said, we were not innately taught to be protected or to have emotional needs that were consistently met.
Exactly.
Or that we even know how to voice.
Exactly.
So yeah, we definitely need to bring some awareness around that.
Absolutely. Because it's something that we don't, a lot of times we cannot identify it within ourselves. Like when you think about whether or not we've been protected, and you know, that goes into history books and all kinds of things of how that happened, right? And how that was kind of engineered, that we were not supposed to be cared for, right?
Yeah.
That we were conditioned to be independent and to teach our children to be submissive so that they didn't get the lash, right? Like the men in our lives did. And so when you think about the fact that then we have to protect ourselves, and that whole, strong Black woman, look, that's a blessing and a curse, because yes, we are able to be very strong, but that doesn't mean that we are not worthy of care and to be protected. We don't always want to have to protect ourselves. We don't always want to be strong.
I have never wanted to be. I am purely strong because I've had to be. It was never, there was no covering. So I had no option other than to be that. Because I had to survive. And I think, especially as a Black woman, we have this, we're gonna survive. We know how to survive, but do we know how to address what we need? Do we know how to ask for that? Do we know how to make informed decisions to invite people into our lives that can meet us there?
Right.
So that, I think that is something that that is more, needs to be more talked about than anything, because we can continue that uncovered and unsafe conversation, but until we start putting actionable things in place within ourselves, within our communities, within our men, to say, hey, this is where the gap is, this is where it needs to be filled, and this is where we're willing to meet you at, in that, then we won't experience change. But I'm glad that we're having this conversation. I never thought that I would experience anything in life that would make me so attuned with what happened ancestrally, or I'm a firm believer in the Bible, and one of the passages, one of my favorite books of the Bible is Ecclesiastes, and King Solomon wrote it, and he was telling, like, nothing new happens under the sun. Everything that has happened has already happened. And so I think the challenge that each generation gets is, when that thing happens that has already happened, what are we going to do differently than the last generation?
Right.
So I'm happy to be a part of the conversation. I'm happy to be challenging myself, even through what I've gone through, because I'm not the first survivor. I won't be the last. But I do want it to mean something. I want it to help transform the perspective of someone else.
Absolutely.
Our generation, next generation, previous, whatever generation. But yeah, because it's powerful. I don't remember where I was in my story, because we had
we did put a pin in it. So we were talking about care and concern, and how it was showing up in your relationships, that you were wanting that. And so let's talk about the relationship. Let's briefly talk about the relationships that you had and how the abuse showed up and what ended up happening.
Okay. So at first, it didn't. In my first true romantic relationship, it didn't start out as as physical abuse. It was subtle. It was control dressed as concern. It was, where are you? Where just micromanaging my life. And I'm thinking, oh, he just cares. He wants to know where I am. He wants to know who everyone who's calling me and how long I was on the phone with them and what I wore to school today and all that.
How old were you?
Oh, he just cares. I was 14 when that relationship began, and he was 18. So what I did not know was that I was being groomed. It felt like care to me. And he was older, he was mature. So there was a sense of safety there, that if I think that I think I thought even subconsciously that if another man in my family were to abuse me in any way, he could protect me because he was an adult also.
Right.
Because I mean, that was my reality.
That was your logic.
That was my life. And over time I began to be able to the mask wore off. I was able to see, like, I shouldn't feel managed. I shouldn't feel like my life has to be constantly governed through the lens of someone else. And when I started kind of veering in my own path, he began the next layer, which was emotional withdrawal. So whenever I wouldn't do whatever he preferred or wanted me to do, he would emotionally withdraw. And because I was addicted to his emotional availability and access that he was giving me, that would make me submit.
Right.
And then eventually that stopped working because I recognized, oh, he's doing this on purpose. And I started trying to break free from the relationship. And then he started seeing other women publicly, humiliating me.
Right.
He was having a relationship with a very close friend, a mutual friend of ours, and had no remorse about it. And at this point, we had a child together, and I was in high school at this point, 17 years old. And he withdrew support from the child. He's publicly dating my friend and just completely just not wanting to have anything to do with me. He won't return my phone calls. He won't pay support or, everything that we had agreed that he would do for our child. He stopped completely doing that, just acting as though I didn't exist. So I moved on because I didn't have any other choice. Like, what was I going to do?
Right.
At this point, I'm a mother. I'm in high school. I have to finish school. I have to create a future for myself and my baby. So I moved on. And when I think he figured that I had moved on because he slowly started trying to come around, and was doing some subtle stalking. Like, I'd wake up and he'd be parked outside of my window. He wouldn't call, but he'd just be outside, or he'd just pop up at my school. Or pop up at the daycare. And we lived in separate cities, so it wasn't like he was just randomly, in traffic or passing. No, we lived in different cities, so he was trying to stalk. Well, he was not trying; he was stalking me. And then I ended up starting to date someone else, and I went out on a date, and he actually saw me with the guy. And our child was with his parents for the weekend, which he regularly was. His parents were very involved, especially after they realized what he was doing. They, whatever. But I went to go pick my baby up, and my ex-boyfriend, he attacked me. And at first he like shoved me out the door because it was late. I had just gotten off work, and when I went to go pick my baby up, and they were like, it's New Year's Eve, you know, go out, have fun, he's already asleep, just go,
Right.
or whatever. And I'm like, y'all are y'all sure this is the day I agreed? And they were like, yeah, just go have fun, just pick him up in the morning or tomorrow, whenever. And I'm like, okay. And so as I'm walking out of the house, he shoved me through a glass door, and I fell through the glass on the door, and then he punched me, and he punched me so hard that I had knuckle burn from the side of my face to my mouth. And I didn't even know that was possible. Like, for one, I'd never been hit that hard, and I don't remember much about the rest of the fight. But one of the things that I do remember was his dad, my ex's dad, coming outside asking me what I did to him to make him act like that. And
If I had a dime for every time I heard somebody ask that question.
Yeah.
Like, even within court.
Yeah.
Judges asking, well, what did you do to cause it to escalate to that?
Yeah. And I think it was at that point where I recognized that I wasn't protected in that situation.
Right.
Because the first response was not get her to safety. Like, I drove myself home. No one helped me up off of the ground. They just, they contained him, and they're asking me like, what happened? What happened? What happened? No one checked to see if I was okay, if I needed medical care or attention or anything. Yeah, so I knew something terrible had happened to me, but because I was accustomed to just absorbing what men did to me, I didn't do anything. I didn't pursue charges. I didn't, nothing.
Yeah.
I just kind of isolated myself from him, and I moved on, and I continued a pattern of relationships that mirrored that, because even the guy that I was dating at that time, he became controlling subtly when he found out that, you know, my ex had jumped on me. He's like, well, what did you do? Like, why would he do that? Why would he do that unless y'all are still messing around? Like, what could you do to make him that upset to where he would attack you? And because I needed emotional comfort and care, that didn't send my spidey senses off about him, but he eventually ended up becoming abusive as well.
Physically?
Yeah, physically. Started off as control. And then he began, and then I found out that he was also dating someone else publicly. And I left him, but I ended up finding out that I was pregnant in the midst of the separation, from finding out that he was cheating and he was starting to show signs of controlling and all that. I found out I was pregnant. At this time, I'm 19, pregnant with my second kid, scared, unsupported, and he's showing remorse and all this. So I let him back in, and we moved back in together. He had said he had left the other girl alone. He in fact did not. She was also pregnant. And he was just kind of had us in this love triangle. She began stalking me, harassing me. And if I would reach out to her or defend myself against her or anything, he would get upset, and then he would become physically abusive towards me.
Okay. So let's pause for a second. So let me make sure I'm getting this pattern right. So, childhood survivor of physical and sexual abuse.
Yes.
First relationship at 14, being groomed by an older, teenager. That relationship became controlling. There was emotional withdrawal, emotional abuse, all the things. Became physical. and no one showed concern for you in that moment. Okay, because that's a pattern as well.
Yeah.
So no one showed care and concern for you in that moment. The person that you were dating at that time didn't show care and concern for you either. They used that against you to further control you.
Mm-hmm.
So I got that. Have I got that right so far?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You had mentioned, and I know that there have been other relationships since that one.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the patterns.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm a big fan of, in order to have a good sense of self-awareness,
Yeah.
you also have to recognize not only the patterns of your behavior, but the patterns of other people's behavior.
Yeah.
Right? So in the relationships that you have been in, what have been the patterns of it starting off as control and ending up as physical? How many relationships were those, and were they boyfriend, husband?
Up until this year, the pattern has been consistent. It starts as care. They make me feel cared for, seen.
Mm-hmm.
There's a level of infatuation. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
you're so whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then the disguise, because it's a disguise, and then it started showing up as control.
Mm-hmm.
And this is even with even from childhood. It was that way, because that was how they got me to trust them and to lower my guards around them.
Right.
They would offer care or concern, attention, emotional access,
Right.
and then take control.
Right.
Whether that be physically or sexually or whatever that looks like, and then shame me for it. Because shame puts you in fight, flight, or freeze. It's one of those things where until it creates a level of confusion where you have to figure out if it's you or if it's really.
Right.
So you're confused, right? Am I doing this to them?
Right.
Is it something I'm doing? Is it because I've been a bad girl? Is it because I'm sassy? I'm mouthy? I don't listen?
Right.
But they were trying, but that's what control does. Control tries to take away your free will and force submission. When submission is, what I'm learning as a 35-year-old woman, is submission is something that a woman will innately do when she feels safe. And they were trying to force that without guaranteeing my safety.
Right.
So I'm going against my natural inclinations as a woman because these men are trying to force submission over me without giving me safety. And I can see a pattern of where I became accustomed to that.
Okay. And there was a situation with one of the guys where wasn't there a gun used?
Yes.
Okay,
So
tell me about that situation.
So similar story. He and I were we were just hanging out. We weren't even in a full-blown relationship. We were just hanging out. We were both, this was right after the pandemic. So, you know, that time period where everybody was just happy to get back outside again.
Right.
Like they had started opening up the bars and stuff to limited capacity. So I met him just out, hanging out with friends. He was a good time. He was attentive of me. He'd buy me whatever I wanted. He'd, whatever. And of course, I'm still in that pattern. I still hadn't taken the time to truly heal from that. So I was loving the attention that he was giving me, but there was also no strings.
Yeah.
So we were just having a good time.
Right.
And I felt like that was safe because there was no commitment being requested or required.
Right.
And And my friends were telling me, like, I think he likes you more than, I'm like, no, we're just hanging out. We're just having a good time. Like, I'm not even looking for a relationship. He's not looking for a relationship. Like, we're just having a good time. But I began to kind of see little subtle things. We were out one night with a group of our friends that we bar hopped with regularly, and there was a guy that came in and he was flirting with me, and the guy that I was dealing with, he became very upset. He never addressed the guy and whatever, but he roughed me up that night at the bar. And then and we got into like a heated exchange, and we go to leave, and he strangles me in the car while I'm driving. And I was so shocked and surprised that it happened that I just froze. I didn't respond. Like, we didn't talk about it. I didn't cry. I didn't anything. I just froze. And he immediately became apologetic and all of this and all of that. And I just ended up going home and just going to bed. And the next day, he was extremely apologetic and took me on a shopping spree and, whatever, like paid my bills for that month and all this type of stuff, whatever. And I just ended up letting him stay over the weekend. Well, while we were there in that weekend, there was a snowstorm, massive snowstorm. So we got snowed in together, and his phone is going crazy. Like, I'm not concerned about but it's like, who calling you? Like, why does your phone keep going off? And so he's not putting it on silent. He's not anything. And they're just going off. I'm like, I'm not crazy. I've been with enough men to know if that phone going off, your mom's dead. So it's not your mom.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I know it's another woman. Ain't no man calling you that many times or whatever. So I go through his phone, and I see text messages where he's just like, yeah, I'm at, this girl's house, and I'm just gonna get some money from her, and then I'm coming home to you, and da 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 da, and whatever. And he's asleep while I'm going through his messages. And so I wake him up out of his sleep, and I'm like, hey, like, yeah, you can go like to her right now. Like, you don't have to wait or whatever, however you thought this was gonna play out. And he instantly like hops up and asserts dominance, and he just hits me. And so we're tussling, because by this time I have gone from victim to villain. And we got to talk about that more, because like, I'm not, and the guy, he was like 6'5", 280, like, and I'm 5'6" at the time. I was probably 190, 180, 190 or whatever, but I'm going toe to toe with him. But then he ends up striking me so hard. He hit me so hard in the back of my head that I stumbled forward. And as I was raising up, trying to gather myself together, and I was still dazed, I heard him cock his gun and put it to my temple. And it wasn't, at this point, I'd probably been in 50 domestic violence disputes at this point. But that was the first time that I realized I could actually die. And I called the police. He was arrested, and the police were not caring. They were not compassionate. They weren't.
What was their response? What did they say to you?
Well, there was one lady there, and she was just like, you need to, she was like, how old are you? You need to be more careful about the type of men you let in your house. And while there was maybe some validity to what she said, it was just read the room.
Right.
Like, read the room. I just got a gun put to my head. I'm concussed.
Right.
Like, read the room.
Right.
You know? And then there was another officer that was kind of making a joke of it. He had kind of said something along the lines like, you must have been getting the best of them. Like, why do you pull a gun on you?
Wow.
Because as I'm explaining what happened, like that at first we were fighting, and then he pulled the gun. It's like, oh, you must have been getting the best of them. And I'm like,
wow. What about your family? What was their reaction to that situation?
They were, no one showed up. No one showed up. They asked me if I was okay and if I needed anything, but no one made a physical effort to provide care or comfort for me during that time period.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I was already kind of isolated from my family because they're controlling as well. And I had gotten to a place in my life where I just refused to be controlled by anyone.
Yeah.
And they are the type of people that if we cannot have a say or influence over you, we will not support you to any degree. You're on your own. So I was already on my own, and I had been on my own at that point for the past 2 years.
Yeah.
So I think for them, it was more so like, this is why you need to be under our covering and influence, because these are the type of situations you're getting yourself into. And without an acknowledgement, because they were aware that I had been abused as a child. No one ever took the time to get me psychological help, to get me any type of support. Even in the church, we were in the church, and they never prayed for me, never prayed over me, never said. My grandmother said something one time. She was like, "We should have got you an exorcism when you were little."
Exorcism.
Exorcism is crazy, but she said that.
Word.
Yeah, and she said that because they thought I was just a bad kid.
Okay.
Yeah,
and that's yet again, that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, a whole nother thing
as far as families and how, again, whether intentional or unintentional, families can groom the children in those families to either become a victim or to become an abuser in relationships. And there is so much, part of the reason we have intergenerational trauma is because you have family that is complicit in the abuse. They know about it, but they're loyal. They know about it, but they deny it. They know about it, but, and so how are we supposed to feel about that as childhood survivors, right? Knowing that your family knows about these things that are happening to you. Yet again, that is teaching us that the people who, even if it's not the person who directly did it to you, the people who are supposed to love and care for you are still able to cause harm, and you're still supposed to have a relationship with them.
And they're still, and that's so good because they were still expecting normalcy from a child that was abused, unsupported, uncared for, and gifted. So there was another layer to that too, because I was extremely smart and gifted and independent from a young age. I was given a lot of independence as a child. Like once my parents knew that I could cook, I could clean, I could care for myself, I could dress myself, that was my sole responsibility. I was responsible for myself at a very young age. Even emotionally, there was no emotional regulation that was taught within my household or anything. So I learned how to cope with my emotions. They knew they weren't teaching me, but I mean, I was alive, so whatever. She must be okay. Until it started turning into things that couldn't be hidden anymore.
Right.
I was sneaking out of the house. I was skipping school. I was becoming promiscuous. I was lying and just kind of acting out of all of the things because I was emotionally out of control. There was no control.
Right.
None whatsoever. And then they were trying to force submission on an emotionally dysregulated child.
Right. Okay.
And blaming me for it.
Right. So in that situation, you had just been, in a physical altercation with this man. He pulled the gun on you, cocked it and everything.
And it was loaded. It was loaded.
And you said that was the first time, even though you had been probably in 50 different, domestic situations, that was the first time that you realized that you could have died.
Yeah.
Was that the first time that a weapon had ever been used?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that was the first time a weapon had ever been used against me.
Right.
I had grabbed things to defend, but yes, that was the first time.
Okay. And so when it comes to continuing with charges, did you continue with charges? Or
I did not.
And why is that?
Because I didn't feel like a victim.
Tell me more about that.
So I found out about the process just having to go through it. So when you file domestic assault charges, they don't make an the only reason they made an immediate arrest was because there was a weapon involved and found on the premises and he was a felon.
Okay.
So, but in order to formally file the charges, like you have to go make a formal report. So you have to go downtown. You have to give a written report. They have to take a picture of your injuries and all of that. And they gave me like this generic questionnaire, and it was just like, all right, somebody will follow up with you. Like there was no, do you have somewhere safe to go tonight? Do you need any further assistance? Do you need medical care? No one even asked me if I needed medical care.
Wow.
That wasn't even offered to me when the officers came on the scene. I drove myself to to downtown to file the charges, and when they explained to me like the process, like, oh well, this is what's gonna happen, they're gonna follow up with you, just make sure you go to court, whatever. A lot of times these cases get thrown out because whatever. But yeah, and it was just like, yeah, so just go back and live your life. So I didn't feel like anyone cared. I felt like the same way that the officers on the scene and the people who just treated me like I was just another victim or survivor, because I didn't even feel like a victim, just another survivor. Like there was no compassion. Like I could have died and no one cared.
Yeah. So if they don't care,
we're gonna get a judge to care that sees thousands of these cases every day. So I just felt like it would be a waste of my time and everybody else's time to go to pursue the charges.
And the reason that I wanted you to kind of talk about that is because, in the field that I'm in and doing this work for a while, especially being in domestic violence prosecution unit, right, of the DA's office, there are so many cases and there are so many situations where the women in those cases are dropping charges.
Yeah.
And the prosecutors don't get it. They don't understand. They're like, why would you drop these charges? A gun was used or this or that. There's even one one conversation that I had with prosecutors about the vandalism charge. So there's an aggravated assault, but also a vandalism charge because the defendant had broken her iPhone or something like that, which cost over $1,000, right? And the victim was adamant about pressing charges and wanting that restitution for her phone, but she wasn't as concerned about the aggravated assault. And they were like, that makes no sense. Why would you be more concerned about your phone than you're concerned about this person jumping on you? And kudos to them for caring, right? But at the same time, the reason that you don't understand it is because that's what we have been conditioned to believe.
Yeah.
Not just from a standpoint of racially and systemic racism, but we have been conditioned to believe that property is more important than bodies. Let me give you an example. It is a felony for it to be vandalism over $1,000, but a misdemeanor domestic assault can be anything from me hitting your knee to actual, punching somebody in the face and breaking their nose. The laws say that property is it's an automatic felony above $1,000.
Yeah.
So how dare you make it seem like a victim is crazy for valuing her phone, which is probably the only way that she's able to communicate, get, work, all of that.
Yeah.
How dare you?
Yeah. And the law is definitely so lenient because I remember, well, this was actually some information that you had given me, but was saying that strangulation is one of the number one causes of death in domestic violence cases, but it's not charged as attempted murder.
So in the state of Tennessee, it has changed where it is now considered a felony.
Okay.
It's charged incorrectly a lot of times. Law enforcement is charging it as a domestic assault.
Yeah.
When it should be an aggravated assault.
Yeah.
Which would automatically make it a felony. But especially if a woman is pregnant, then it has, they've put in stipulations for that where it is attempted murder in those cases.
Yeah. And rightfully so, like, it's such a fragile thing. Cutting off someone's airway? How is that not saying I want you to die?
Exactly. Well, it's I did a podcast episode with a expert on strangulation, Dr. Amanda Taylor. Go check that episode out. But she talked about strangulation being the number one precursor to homicide. That's the number one thing that happens before someone kills someone else, is that there has been an instant of strangulation. And because it is something that happens so quickly, people don't realize how dangerous it actually is. We, as survivors of it, often don't recognize how dangerous it is.
Yeah.
And I want to bring up something else that you mentioned about, this had been something that you had been accustomed to, and so in other situations you may not have called the police. That is something that is also common with polyvictimization. When you've been abused in various different ways over a lifetime, your response to it isn't going to be what everybody thinks it should be.
It was normalized.
Right. Well, I mean, and
or desensitized.
Yeah, you become desensitized to it because to that point, I've had a loaded gun to my head, and I told him pull the trigger because I'm like, I'm so sick of you.
What you gonna do?
If you gonna do it, do it, right?
Yeah.
It did not occur to me that I could have died in that moment. It didn't register for me that, yes, he could actually pull that trigger and it would be over. And it wasn't until I was training law enforcement on the lethality assessment program and how there was a recording of this woman, and she was talking about, her ex-fiance won't leave the house and blah, blah, blah. And she gets to a point where she says, yes, he's got a gun, he's pointing it at me, blah, blah, blah. And they were asking her about whether or not he was on drugs or something like that. And she's so calm throughout the entire conversation.
Yeah.
Like, you would think that she's just calling about,
Yeah.
somebody.
He does it all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And while they're asking her the question, you hear 2 pops. It was in that moment that I realized I was that calm. And it could have been over like that.
Yeah.
And I have no idea what happened in that particular case,
right.
and whether or not she survived it or not. I just know that when I trained law enforcement, I told them, just because someone is calm about it doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Right.
It doesn't mean that they're in any less danger. And that's part of the conversation I had to have with prosecutors, is that, especially with Black women, and we are in Memphis, Tennessee, okay?
Yeah.
With Black women, you have to be culturally competent.
Yeah.
If this is the demographic that you're working with, you have to be culturally competent to recognize that Black women are not going to say, I'm scared of him. Or even if they admit that, they may not understand fully the danger that they're in. You don't have to be, my Krav instructor used to say, you don't have to be scared to get dead.
That is true.
Right?
That is true. And it's normally the person that kills you that is inferior to you.
And if you think about what that means for someone, you don't have to be afraid. Change your questioning.
Yeah.
If what you're trying to get to is whether or not this person is dangerous, or whether or not you thought that person was going to kill them, or whatever, that's the question. Not, are you afraid of this person?
Right.
Do you think that person would kill you?
Yeah.
And that answer was always yes.
Yeah.
That's what you're trying to get to.
Yeah.
Again, read the room.
Please.
You know what I mean?
And I would, so the few times that I did call the police, I was always hoping that there was a man that would show up, that would see me and see his daughter, see his mother, see his niece, see his wife.
Wow.
And that was never the case.
Wow.
Never.
Ooh,
there was never a time where I felt better that the police had came or that I had called. There was never a time.
Well, yet again, a whole other podcast episode about law enforcement and their rates of DV within their relationships.
Right.
But I definitely understand that.
Yeah.
I definitely feel like more survivors that I have talked to in the time that I've been in this field have had bad experiences with law enforcement, re-traumatizing experiences with law enforcement, than those who have had good experiences.
Yeah.
And that's why the lethality assessment program that law enforcement does, and it varies in different states and different areas, but when a law enforcement agency is using that tool, it's supposed to help them determine who's at a higher rate of being killed, or high, has a higher chance of being killed. And they specifically train it so that law enforcement has to say certain words. They have to use certain language to convey that they care.
Yeah.
And when that was used properly, and when it was used by officers that truly did care, those survivors are the only ones that I've ever experienced that have told me that this time was different.
Yeah.
The officer didn't just blow over it. Like, they actually said that they were concerned for my safety.
Yeah.
Right? And then they were more likely to connect with resources.
Yeah.
Because law enforcement seemed to care about what happened to them.
Yeah.
When done properly, the lethality assessment program is awesome.
Yeah.
But getting law enforcement to do that and to really care and not just say the words,
right,
is a totally different thing.
Yeah, for sure.
And a lot of times, I mean, we're not even talking about the systemic racism that has occurred with law enforcement and the Black and brown community, and so there's not the trust there.
Yeah.
To feel comfortable doing that. I remember as a absolutely grown woman, having an experience at my job where I was sexually assaulted, and it never crossed my mind to call the police. Because
me too.
I think a lot of times we expect that whatever process is in place is going to take care of that.
Yeah.
In college, there are so many students who allow the college and the Title IX process to handle that of what happened to them and go through that process thinking that it's the same as the criminal justice process, but it's not.
It is not.
Right? So you have those of us who are thinking, well, my job has these rules about this, and this was his third strike. And they told him, third strike, you're out. We've had too many problems with you and women.
Yeah.
They didn't fire him. So here I am not filing a police report because I'm like, he's going to be gone anyway.
Yeah.
But it didn't happen. And so I'm still having to interact with this person. I'm still having to see this person every day.
Yeah.
And of course, at a certain point, we all know, especially when it comes to sexual assault, the response from law enforcement is, why didn't you report it sooner?
Why didn't you report it sooner if it really happened? Yeah.
So to your point earlier about like putting ourselves through those things, do we even want to? It is a valid question. Do we want to put ourselves through that when the likely outcome is that it's still not going to result in justice?
Yeah. I have to prove that I was impacted deeply by this. There's, yeah.
So, but you've had, those experiences, and I know that there have been more. But I want to talk about now. I want to talk about, look, what does...
When the getting get good.
You know what I mean? Like, what does that look like? Because we need to understand, and that's part of the premise of the show, is that there is healing on the other side of domestic and sexual violence. There is.
It is.
Tell me what that looked like for you.
Oh, man. Healing started as a decision. I decided that I wanted to heal because, like I said earlier, I realized that I didn't have any control over, or don't have any control over, how other people treat me. But my healing is my responsibility. Because even holding them accountable, holding myself accountable, that wasn't healing me. Even because there was some acknowledgement. I'd received some acknowledgement, even some genuine apologies that I felt like were sincere, but that didn't heal the hole in my heart. That didn't fill the void of trust and lack of covering in my life. So I became intentional about what I wanted: love, safety, trust, and a healed heart to look like for me. And I found God in that place. And God is and was my saving grace, and always will be. But there was a grace that I received in building that relationship with God that allowed me to see my abusers as people too. Like, they're not just abusers, they're people too. And most abusers have been abused.
Right.
Because that's what happens. I had become abusive and toxic. In certain parts throughout my story, which in turn kind of made it hard for me to believe that I was still a victim, because I was also doing what was done to me. But I had to say no to that, because I realized that my heart was contaminated, and whatever is in your heart is going to come out in what you say and how you act and how you treat people, how you relate to others is going to happen. And so I got sick and tired of being sick and tired. So I found God, and I found grace for others, for myself, for my situation. And then I allowed that change in perspective to give me purpose. Because although I'd been through all of these traumatic things, I'm still standing.
Right.
That means I'm undefeated. I'm
Okay.
undefeated to date. That means that any weapon that forms against me
Mhm.
has not prospered.
Mhm.
And so when I started looking at it like that, I'm like, okay, so maybe there is some good that has come from this. I've developed a level of resilience, and resilience cannot happen without pressure. You can't build resilience without pressure.
Right.
And it's not really pressure if you choose it, right?
Mm.
Like it's pressure when it comes and you weren't expecting it, or you didn't know what to do. You weren't in control of the situation, but you learned how to adapt
Right.
in those situations, and that built a resilience in me, and also gave me a grace for people that I wouldn't have otherwise had. Because a lot of I know several other survivors that are hardened, they're bitter,
Right.
they don't trust anyone,
Right.
and my heart hurts
Right.
for them
Yeah.
because they're so afraid of opening their heart again,
Yeah.
that they build this wall to keep the bad things out, but the wall doesn't filter the good from the bad. It keeps everything out. So you don't get joy, you
Yeah.
don't get peace, you
Yeah.
just get left with the residue of what happened to you. And I didn't want that to be my story. So
Yeah.
I'm grateful.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for love, for grace, for joy, for mercy. One of my favorite scriptures, it says, "Blessed are those who are merciful, for they will be given mercy." And a lot of people don't know the difference between grace and mercy. I'm going to explain it.
Okay.
So grace is something that is given to you freely. It's unmerited. It's something you don't deserve. You haven't done anything to deserve it. It's been given to you. Mercy is different. Mercy is, I've done something to deserve punishment, but the punishment has been withheld. So with being able to be merciful towards other people, they've wronged me. I've been hurt, I've been abused, I've been mistreated, I've been taken for granted, but to the ability that I'm able to withhold punishment for them, I'm given mercy.
Okay.
And because I'm not perfect, I've
Right.
done things, I've caused harm,
Yeah.
I've caused heartbreak, blessed my parents' hearts. I took them through hell,
Right.
you
Right.
know, and I need mercy.
Mm.
And we all do. And so,
Right.
so healing looks like being able to see light at the end of a very, very dark tunnel, and wholeness.
Mhm.
I never thought I would be whole because I was broken at such a young age. I never thought I'd be whole.
Yeah.
I didn't even think that was something that was possible. I felt like there would always be something wrong with me. Or something I had to overcome.
Thank you so much for watching the Empowered and in Control podcast. Hey, have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? When people recommended it to me, I had no idea where to start. I didn't know anything about podcasting. And then I saw the ads for the My Seven Figure podcast. Now, seven figures did pique my interest, but I had no idea how people were making money podcasting. What really got me was the idea of being able to help so many more people through a podcast. So I signed up for the course and the community. It is so thorough, let me tell you. From branding to making sure that it's legally protected to monetizing, they left no guesswork and no excuses. So click the link in the description to sign up for my seven figure podcast course and invest in your future. There are podcasts about everything, but there are certain things that people only want to hear from you. So get started today. People need to hear your voice.
So healing has really softened me in spaces that I didn't know could be softened. I'm able to view my abusers as people too. Because I know that a lot of people who are abusive have been abused. And so healing has given me a shift in perspective that they are people too that are probably hurting, and grace has given me the opportunity to be able to extend understanding where I've endured suffering.
Right.
And so my heart just hurts for some of the survivors who never truly experience healing or wholeness after, because they've become bitter. Their hearts have become so hardened, and they've put this wall up. And I understand the wall, right? You've endured a lot of things, so our bodies are going to naturally protect themselves. But the wall also keeps the good things out too. It doesn't have a filter to where, oh, we're going to keep the bad things out, but let the good things in. So you block joy, you block peace, you block love when you're trying to block trauma and suffering. And so I'm grateful. I'm blessed to be able to have a soft heart after all that I've endured.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Now, I will say that there is a difference between having grace and mercy for people while also expecting accountability.
Yes.
Right. So I would never want any survivor to think that because their abusive partner was abused, that they should just have mercy and withhold that accountability for those actions.
Yes, that is good. That's good.
Because I think we do that a lot within the relationship anyway.
For sure.
Right?
We're
recognizing, and so that's a lot of times how the trauma bonding happens in the beginning is this person has been hurt, this person comes from, abuse and everything, and so have I. And so we are giving grace throughout the entire relationship.
Yeah.
But especially once we've gotten to a point where we have removed ourselves from that, we still can have mercy for that person as far as we are not going after them.
Yeah.
We are not personally trying to inflict some sort of punishment.
Yeah.
But at the same time, accountability has to be had. Otherwise, behavior doesn't change.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make that clarification.
Oh, for sure.
For anyone who might be a little confused about what that means for their forgiving journey.
There can't be repair without accountability.
Right.
There is no repair. You can't grace your way into repair.
Exactly.
You can't.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. We are going to have more conversations like this and talk about some of the things that a lot of survivors are experiencing, and we don't talk about it nearly enough. So again, I'm Oriana, host of the Empowered and in Control podcast. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
And I will see you guys next week. Bye.